Look, if you recently moved your family's emergency fund into a high-yield savings account paying like 4.5% or whatever,
You probably feel like an absolute financial genius right now. I mean, we literally did.
right, but you're not. You just found a slightly more comfortable seat inside a machine that is still totally ripping you off.
Oh, Frank, stop. Ripping us off? How is 4.5% a bad thing?
Because it's an illusion. Here is what's actually happening. The bank takes your hard-earned deposit, they go buy U.S. Treasury bills, they pocket this massive profit spread, and then...
They throw us the leftovers.
Exactly. They expect you to be so incredibly grateful for the tiny little crumbs of interest they toss back at you.
Okay, wow. But wait, if high-yield accounts are just them playing us, where are we actually supposed to put our cash? Like, I'm genuinely asking, what is the alternative that doesn't involve keeping it under a mattress?
You cut out the middleman. Today, we are going to show you exactly how to kick the middleman out entirely. We'll walk you through how to buy those exact same treasury bills yourself using simple tools like the SGOV ETF or Treasury Direct.
Oh, I love the sound of that.
Right? You keep the full yield, and this is the crazy part, you legally bypass state income taxes on that money.
Okay, I am so ready for this. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Frank. Welcome to Talk and Wonder. We create easy-to-understand whiteboard animations covering family finance, investing, passive income, and debt management.
Our goal is to break down complex financial topics, help you avoid traps, and build wealth together.
So if you want to secure your future and stop letting banks use your money for free, you are exactly in the right place.
Okay, so where do we even start? Because buying treasury bills sounds, a little intimidating.
Well, to really understand why the high-yield account is a trap, we actually need to back up for a second. We need to look at the absolute bottom of the barrel first.
You mean the traditional savings account, like the big national banks?
Right, the 0.0 whatever percent accounts. Let's say your friend Sarah's situation. She did everything right by the book, right? She saved $20,000. She saved $20,000, and she kept it in a traditional savings account at a big national bank.
Which is what we're all literally taught to do, right? You log into the app, you see a few dollars hit your account, and you think, okay, I'm being a responsible adult.
Well, that responsible account is paying her 0.38% APY. That's the national average right now. So, on 20 grand, she's earning $76 a year?
Wait, $76 for a whole year? That's like what, $6 a month? You can't even buy a decent latte anymore.
I know, but Sarah probably assumes her money is just sitting there in a vault somewhere, staying safe. But it's not. The literal second she deposited that money, the bank put it to work. Not for her, obviously, for them.
Okay, so what are they actually doing with her $20,000 behind the scenes?
They lend it out. I mean, that is the core business model of every bank in America. They take your deposit, pay you a fraction of a percent, and lend it to someone else at a much higher rate. The difference, the spread, is called the net interest margin.
Right, so buy low, sell high, basically.
Exactly. And right now, the average net interest margin for U.S. banks is 3.39%. That's the highest it's been since 2019. Let me put that in real numbers. Sarah gets her $76, but the bank earns an average of $602 from that exact same 20 grand.
Okay, I need a second. Sarah got $76 and they kept $600?
And that's just the average. Let's look at where they really make a killing. Credit cards. The average credit card APR right now is, I think it's 20%? No, wait, 21%.
Don't remind me. We've been there.
Right. So the bank takes Sarah's deposit, pays her 0.38%, and turns around and lends that money to credit card holders at 21%, or auto loans at 7.5%, personal loans at 12%. Every single one of these lending products is funded by deposits like Sarah's.
So they are basically taking zero risk with their own money. They're just using our emergency funds to fuel their ridiculously profitable loans.
It gets worse. Then there's the treasury trade. This is the one that should actually make you furious. furious. Sarah's bank takes a portion of her deposit and buys short-term U.S. Treasury bills. Right now, 3-month T-bills are yielding around 3.6%.
Let me guess, they buy it at 3.6% and pay her 0.38%.
Yep. That is a 3.22% spread on an asset that Sarah could literally just buy herself. The bank is acting as a totally unnecessary middleman between Sarah and the U.S. government and charging her over 3% for the privilege.
And on top of that, they probably charge her if she overdrafts by $2.
Oh, the fees. American banks collected an estimated $121 billion in fees in a single year. Maintenance charges, overdrafts, ATM fees, plus the cut they take every time you swipe your debit card. They're making money from your spending data, from the float when transactions clear.
So when you add it all up, they didn't hold her money at all. They basically just rented it.
Exactly. They paid her $76 a year for the right to use her 20 grand however they wanted. But look, here is where people like our friend David come in. Because David is the person watching this video thinking, yeah, I already knew banks suck. That's why I moved my money. That's why I moved my money to a high-yield savings account. Right, because David did the math, he's earning 4.5% instead of 0.38%. So on that same 20 grand, he is pulling in $900 a year. He thinks he's beaten the system.
And honestly, going from $76 to $900, it feels like a massive win. I mean, we celebrated when we made that switch a few years ago.
Oh, totally. He's way ahead of Sarah. But, and this is a big but, there are 3 massive problems with the high-yield account. And the first one is the bait and switch.
Oh, I know this one, the whole up to 4.5% trick.
Exactly. You see 4.5% in bold letters on their website, but read the fine print. Some accounts use tiered structures, so they only pay that top rate on your first $500 and then the rate drops. Or it's a promotional rate for 90 days and then they quietly lower it. The bank can literally drop his rate to 3.5% next month and just send an automated email about it.
Which usually ends up in the spam folder anyway. Okay, what's problem number 2?
Serious, the tax trap. And this is the silent killer for savings accounts. Any interest you earn in a savings account, whether it's high yield or not, is taxed as ordinary income.
Right, so you're paying both federal and state taxes on it.
Yes. Let's say David is in the 22% federal bracket and he lives in a state with a 5% income tax. He's losing over a quarter of his interest to taxes. That $900 he felt so good about, it instantly shrinks down to roughly $657 after tax.
Ouch. Okay, so almost $250 just evaporated.
Exactly. But the third problem? This is the one that proves the high-yield account is just a better seat in the same machine. What do you think David's bank is actually doing with his money to pay him 4.5%?
I'm guessing exactly what they did with Sarah's money?
Bingo. They're lending it out. They're running the exact same profit machine. The only difference is they're sharing a slightly bigger slice of the profit with David to keep him happy.
But it's still just a slice.
Right. They are still buying U.S. Treasury bills. They're still acting as the middleman. So the real question David never thought to ask is if the bank is using my money to buy U.S. Treasury bills, why don't I just buy them myself?
Okay, yes, this is the part I was waiting for, because you mentioned earlier that if we cut out the bank, we actually save on taxes. How does that work?
Okay, let's look at a short-term Treasury bill ETF like SGWAV. Right now, its 12-month trailing yield is around 3.95%.
Wait, hold on. David's high-yield account was paying 4.5%. SGOV is 3.95%. Isn't David still winning?
On the surface, yes, but here's the cheat code. Interest from U.S. Treasury securities is exempt from state and local income taxes. It's federal law.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait, so you still pay federal tax, but your state can't touch it.
Exactly. So David pays federal and state taxes on his $900, leaving him with $677. The SGOV investor earns about $790 in gross income, but they don't pay a dime in state tax. After taxes, the SGOV investor keeps roughly $616.
Okay, but $667 is still slightly more than $616.
In this specific snapshot, yes, but remember the bait and switch. David's 4.5% is an advertised rate the bank controls. SGOV's yield tracks actual government auctions. It's market-driven. And if you live in a high-tax state like California or New York, that tax exemption completely flips the math in favor of treasuries. Plus, SGOV cuts the bank entirely. You're keeping the full yield, minus a tiny 0.09% annual fee.
Okay, so SGOV is basically like an ETF you can buy from an app.
Yep, you literally buy it through whatever brokerage account you already use, Robinhood, Schwab, Fidelity. But SGOV is just option A. There's an even purer way to do this. Option B is treasurydirect.gov.
Okay, the .gov makes it sound extremely official. What is it?
It is. It's the U.S. government's own website. You go there, set up an account, link your checking account, and you buy treasury bills directly at auction. No middleman, no brokerage, no ETF, no 0.09% expense ratio, nothing.
Wait, so you are literally just lending your money directly to the U.S. government?
Exactly. You lend them the money, the T-bill matures, say in 4 weeks or 3 months, and you get your original money back plus the interest.
Okay, that sounds amazing, but what's the catch? Because there's always a catch.
The catch is liquidity. With an ETF like SGOV, you can hit sell during market hours and get your money out pretty much right away. But with Treasury Direct, you are committing to a maturity date. So if you buy a 4-week bill, your money is tied up for 4 weeks.
Ah, okay, so it's not great if you need cash like this second.
Right, which leads to option C, money market funds. A lot of brokerages like Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard offer these. They invest in short-term government debt, but they offer daily liquidity. You can pull your money out anytime. And if you choose a treasury-only fund, you get that exact same state tax exemption.
Okay, wait, let me process this. So we have SGOV, which is easy like a stock, Treasury Direct, which is pure but locks your money up, and money market funds, which are flexible.
You got it. And the whole point here is that David never even knew he had these options. He thought moving from 0.38 to 4.5 was the finish line.
Because that's what the bank marketing wants you to think.
Bingo. It's not the finish line. He's just getting a slightly better deal while the bank still keeps the lion's share of the profit.
Okay, but Frank, I have to ask the question that I know everyone is screaming at their screen right now.
Let me guess. Is it safe?
Yes, because my bank account has FDIC insurance. If the bank collapses, the government guarantees my 20 grand. Isn't moving money out of the bank super risky?
That is the most common objection. And yes, FDIC insurance covers up to $250,000 per depositor. That is a real vital protection. But think about who is actually providing that protection.
The government?
Yes. The same U.S. federal government that backs your bank deposits is the exact same government issuing the treasury bills.
Oh my God, you're right.
Exactly. When you buy a treasury bill, you are lending money directly to the entity that guarantees your bank deposits. The risk of default is essentially zero because, well, the government can literally just print money to pay its debts.
Which is a whole other problem, but at least we get paid.
Exactly. So you're not giving up safety. You are just moving from a government guarantee on your bank to lending directly to that same government. In some ways, it's actually more direct.
Okay, but what about the emergency part of the emergency fund? Because if our water heater explodes on a Sunday night, I can't wait for a treasury bill to mature or for SGOV to settle on a Tuesday.
And that is a perfectly fair point, which is why you don't close your checking account. This entire strategy is not about changing how you spend your money. It's about changing where your idle money sits.
So we're splitting the job. Checking account for life, treasuries for the heavy lifting.
Exactly. You keep your checking account funded for daily needs, rent, groceries, or, the exploding water heater on a Sunday. But the bulk of your emergency fund, the cash you are setting aside for a down payment or just savings waiting to be invested, that sits in something like SGOV.
Right, because honestly, when was the last time we needed $20,000 in cash within 60 seconds?
Never. In a real emergency, 1 to 2 business days to settle a trade is usually perfectly fine. And while you wait for that hypothetical emergency to happen, you're earning hundreds of dollars more a year, entirely state tax-free.
Okay, so let's recap this because my mind is a little blown. Sarah did everything by the book. She saved, she checked her balance, she was responsible.
But she got crushed by the net interest margin.
Right, and David was informed. He did his homework, he moved to the high-yield account, he earned 10 times more than Sarah.
But he got hit by state taxes and the bait-and-switch trap, all while his bank still acted as the middleman, making a killing off his deposit.
Because neither of them ever asked the actual question, what is the bank doing with my money, and can I just do it myself?
And the answer is yes. Your bank takes your deposit, buys treasuries, or lends it out at 20% on credit cards, and pays you a fraction of a percent. The smartest move isn't finding a slightly better savings account.
It's asking why you need one for your idle cash at all.
Exactly. Look, if this video showed you something you didn't know was happening with your own money, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell.
We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day, so you can stop getting played by the system.
And you really don't want to miss our next video. We're going to dive into, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's about the silent killer eating your retirement. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.